We've calculated about $1.5 billion of underperformance of the systems right now
No way.
in the country. That's just underperformance. And that's only going to exponentially increase as systems age because construction has exponentially increased itself. You know, there's more than 4 million systems in Australia. We've got more systems per capita than any other country in the world.
We're a sun-kissed country.
Correct. The government definitely helps that, both resi and commercial.
Yeah.
But it's just outrageous to me that we're still seeing the majority, and I will say the majority of systems, not maintained at all.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Facilities podcast.
The podcast where we talk about the innovations, insights and impact of the FM industry. My name's Aaron.
And I'm Tim.
And today on the podcast, we have Daniel Lazarus, the CEO of Industrias Services Group, a company on the mission to change the way Australia thinks about solar maintenance.
Yeah, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how solar may be one of the best levers that you can pull as a facility manager to reach your targets and emission goals.
Yeah, and in the episode, we also talk about how it's often forgotten and how when you treat solar maintenance right and look after your solar panels, it can really help with fixing the bottom line.
Yeah, so if you've got a solar system or you're thinking about putting one in commercially and you're not quite sure how to get the best out of it and get the most out of your system, then this episode is for you.
Great episode, let's jump in.
Looking for the buyer, then just be open to change.
It feels so good to spread my wings.
I actually had to learn to do it because
this is a question to avenge every...
My brother had mushrooms growing in his car.
Spreadsheet is like gold.
Water start pouring on me.
It's such a rewarding career. Drag them down! We love you all of our customers.
So, we're up in Sydney right now.
Yep.
And producer Ben, who's behind a table over there, has left his 32 panels at home. And just having chatted, he's now worried, well, is there going to be a fire while I'm here? Like, problems arise when you don't take care of your solar panels. Mm-hmm. You guys are all about that. Tell us a little bit about the risks. Let's start with the hard-hitting climax and then we'll work our way back. What is the risk of not maintaining your solar panels? Because lots of people just get them and forget about them.
Totally. Let's take a step back in terms of sort of how solar works.
Yeah.
And whether we're talking resi or commercial, industrial, it works the same ways, right? It's all the same way. It's large commercial systems, essentially just more panels and more inverters, ultimately. Yeah. Right. Essentially, solar, as everyone knows, produces electricity. So the ultimate irony around conversations around solar is people think it's set and forget. There's no moving parts. It just sits up there and does its thing.
It just sits up there and collects the sun's rays.
Correct.
That's what I think.
That's all it does.
Barren rays.
We should get you to be our salesperson. I like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately what it's doing is it's genuinely generating electricity. So you could argue that it's an extremely sort of dangerous or volatile system if left unchecked, more so than many other assets which have far more regular and regulated maintenance regimes, whether it be chillers or HVAC, infrastructure or whatever it might be. So for an electricity producing asset, it has all the risks that you would probably be able to explain to me. Like I don't need to explain to people, if something produces electricity, there's enormous risks around water ingress and fire and all the things that anyone would know, but for some reason people just don't think about. So
I'd argue it's too scary to think about.
Yeah, well, that's the ironic thing, right? Is when you talk rationally to someone about this sort of stuff, they seem to get it.
Yeah.
But for many reasons, I think we just discussed before we started recording, some of the reasons could be that it's completely set and forget. You don't see it. It's on the roof. You don't really see it producing electricity. Yeah. So it's very easy to just set and forget until you view your electricity bill. And even then, sometimes it goes unnoticed for months, if not years.
Until your building burns down.
Well, yes. Well, fortunately, that doesn't happen all the time. The biggest impact, of course, is that if something goes wrong, your electricity bills rise materially. Like that is the most common element. Of course, there's risks, right?
Yeah, hang on. I thought I got these panels to stop this from being the case.
Totally, right?
That's literally my brother-in-law 6 months, I said, hey, how's your solar panels going? And he's like, oh, my bill's like $20 cheaper a month. And I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, totally.
And it wasn't.
Absolutely. And maintenance is about performance and safety. Those are the two elements when we talk about solar maintenance, which is the ultimate irony because these companies are spending enormous amounts of time and millions of dollars based on a very specific cash flow and rate of return. And yet when they implement it, if that person leaves or even if they don't, often pay very little attention to how it's performing and if it indeed is performing the way that it was predicted to do so. And holding even the installer to account if something isn't done that way. Which is...
And is that because I wouldn't know? You know, is this operating? My bill seems okay. I guess I find out a month later, and then you're sort of reacting to it. Is it the general, FM may not necessarily know exactly.
No idea how to
is this right?
Decipher.
Is it
totally right? And I want to be very clear. I know, whenever I have these conversations, we talk anecdotally around people's own solar on their house. It is no different for commercial and industrial. In fact, often people would think that someone is responsible or tracking the performance of the system because it's on a commercial asset.
Yeah.
And governance should be higher, safety and performance and metric tracking should be higher. But in many cases, it isn't. And certainly from the owner and the tenant perspective, often they're not. And our experience with many FMs and FM organisations as well, they aren't tracking it either. As long as things aren't going wrong and the tenant isn't openly mentioning or complaining about it, which as we discussed before is less likely to occur with solar than it will be for cleaning floors or for HVAC or for whatever, it just sort of gets unnoticed. And then when something does go wrong, the tenant complains to the FM and the FM more often than not does not have any sort of documentation around the system. It's very rarely handed over from one FM to the other if that changes around documentation.
This just comes up on every episode we
It's
record.
mental.
It's like, but they don't have the information. It's just a common problem.
It's mental, right?
Someone needs to come up with a software that bundles all that.
Well, our company's released a blog article, ironically enough, tomorrow, around exactly this, that only about 15% of systems that we maintain or audit or inspect have the correct documentation. 15%.
15%.
Which is outrageous.
Yeah, and there's no governance around mandating
of course,
that?
No, there is plenty of standards associated with that.
Yeah.
But just because there's standards doesn't mean that people are necessarily aligning with that.
Yeah, policy doesn't always mean practice, does it?
What?
Exactly, right? And that's where we come in because, and when I say we, I don't necessarily mean industrial specifically, but the maintenance industry in general.
Yeah.
That element of things is not mandated. There's certain elements which governing bodies do on a voluntary basis, but there is no mandate that every system or most systems need to be inspected, both whether it be from FMs, from institutions, from insurers. Insurers don't require it.
Really?
It is just ridiculous.
Wow.
So I want to come back to that regulatory piece because I feel like there's a bigger conversation there. What is the worst that can happen? So let's say, okay, yeah, it's underperforming. That's a bad problem. But there are problems like we talked before about Ben being worried about a fire in his house. Commercially, that's not great.
No.
Right? Retail stores, a big office tower. Like, what's some of the dangers that real life examples of dangers that happen from not maintaining?
Sure. So the key sort of safety elements, things, and people can Google this. It's all over. Sort of, they can Google IKEA fire. They can Google Sydney Aquatic Centre fire. These were fires that were created from certain instances on the roof. It could be cables or isolators have cracks in them, so water ingresses into those and creates shorts and arcs and all the things you would expect from electricity.
Yep.
There was high winds. In many occasions, we've seen high winds, and this will be fun. The screws have been corroded, and a panel flies off. That happened last week at a building about 10 stories high. A building flew off the roof.
My goodness.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I got a quote for solar for my house, and they said that as part of the installation, they don't use their own screws anymore. They use whatever screws are currently on the roof. I've got a tin roof, so my roof is screwed down, we're
Yeah.
using those screws.
So they do that, so they don't sort of, there's no extra penetrations, for example.
Yeah.
But that's obviously less common on commercial instances where you'll have
Yes.
like flats or sort of larger roofs. So there could be loose panels could fly. I mean, that's a death risk right there. Aside from, there's debris buildup. Obviously, there's soiled panels, and that's also, I think is important to have these conversations because you mentioned solar maintenance, and people
Yes.
think cleaning your panels.
That's what
Yeah,
I thought.
honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about more than just giving them a wipe down.
Clean panels is such a minor part of maintenance. And I would not just argue, I could show you the evidence that most systems do not need a clean every year. Some do. There's some areas, you guys are from Melbourne, so like South Melbourne area where there's like sort of killer birds and, that's, then
Killer birds.
seriously, yeah.
You're making Melbourne sound like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is, you never know.
Cassowary just tearing solar panels off the roof.
It is,
It has been rough in Victoria.
It is mental. And there's, or maybe there's sort of chicken farms or whatever require continual cleaning for performance.
Yeah.
But that doesn't impact safety really materially. And most systems, certainly residential, would require a clean maybe every 3 years, 5 years. It's just such a
really?
minor part of things.
Yeah, okay.
Can you get? Maybe there is something out there, and if not,
Self-cleaning.
copywriting it right now. Is there a
Producer Ben, book it.
patent it? Cars have the windscreen wipers. They spray and then wipe. Is there something that's built for solar panels?
There is.
Cleans
Good
it?
idea.
Well, there
great.
actually is sort of similar things. People would try to use drones, and there's also like sprinklers at the top that go down and da-da-da. But with things like bird soiling and things like that, you need to have either cleaning robot or a guy with a sort of a panel cleaning brush to
Okay.
properly
Not
do
a
it.
Karcher.
No, that is bad. If you got solar, do not use pressure washing. That will
There you go.
likely cause water to go in the panel.
Ben, did you hear that? Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that's all relevant stuff from a clean perspective, but in reality, this is where experience, becomes really relevant,
Yeah.
and why the likes of FMs and these sorts of things need to rely on organizations with experience in this space.
Yeah.
And it's not a set and forget. In fact, I would go one furthest to say, isn't it the FM's responsibility to optimize the way that not just these assets, but all assets are running, and to make sure that in this case, it's not just about keeping it running, it's about reducing electricity bills, ensuring the system continues to have an ROI. The tenant probably...
Ensuring it's not a danger to the inhabitants of the building.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Especially in many tenants, they might be paying a premium from a rental perspective because the solar is up there, so it pays to ensure that system is, is running optimally.
Yeah.
And so beyond the cleaning of the panels, are we talking about cable inspection, the inverter computer itself? I don't know what it's called inside, running itself?
It's
or-
literally physically inspecting and using specific tools to test various elements of the system. So I'm trying to make this sound as sexy as possible. I know.
I mean, we are a sexy podcast.
Yes, yeah, that's good.
If that's one word
Yeah.
that's used to describe this podcast, it's sexy. They're mostly talking about me.
My wife begs to differ.
But yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like you don't need to go into detail around it. It's inspecting all the various different system segments across that. I mean, based on, again, using our systems that we maintain, which is a fairly material subset of an industry, we've calculated about $1.5 billion of underperformance of the systems right now
No
in
way.
the country. That's just underperformance.
Wow.
And that's only going to exponentially increase as
that-
systems age.
Is that annually? How did you? Yeah. Is that like
that's
annual
annually.
performance? Wow.
So that's only going to exponentially increase as systems age,
Yeah.
because construction has exponentially increased itself. There's more than 4 million systems in Australia. We've got more systems per capita than any other country in the world.
Wow.
And so,
We are primed for it though, right?
yeah, totally, right?
Yeah.
And we've got
A
rebates. and-
sun-kissed country.
That's it.
Correct. The government definitely helps that, both resi and commercial.
Yeah.
But it's just outrageous to me that with the responsibilities from FMs, with governance requirements from certain tenants, etc., that we're still seeing the majority, and I will say the majority of systems, not maintained at all, let alone appropriately.
And
Well,
so-
I would
oh,
never
sorry.
have... sorry.
No.
I would never have thought about maintaining a system like this. Just because I assumed it was just something there that collects and that's it. But it makes sense. Is regulation and around this like mandating some sort of maintenance?
Yeah.
Is that on the horizon? Do you know?
Well, we're trying.
We need a TikTok inspector.
Yeah.
Of solar.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We're trying to institute that. There is recommendations in the standards, but it is not mandated. Even the manufacturers say that they require inspections, but if you don't do it, they'll still warrant their products in many cases. And in some instances, there is, like, for example, the Clean Energy Regulator undertakes inspections on a tiny, tiny subset of national systems, and it's voluntary, which for me is just is not good enough.
No.
And so maintenance is hard, right? To deliver maintenance and deliver it at scale is hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so for most installers, they don't want to focus on that. And that's ultimately, the installers are constructing it, and they are either not mentioning maintenance or they're actively saying it doesn't need maintenance. That the rain wipes off surface residue and there's no moving parts. So
Because they want people to buy their product.
Correct.
And put it on their roof. And adding extra steps
and not correct.
creates that
It's adding extra steps,
friction.
and it also means that, and they're also not equipped to deal with the sort of the maintenance requirements.
It is
So
a
they try to push it.
cell-heavy space.
Pardon?
It's a cell-heavy space,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because it's so new and exciting, and everyone wants to get in to get the rebate as soon as they can.
Especially
There's not a lot of talk about the maintenance.
totally right. So
Or the
so
handover.
when the installers or the person selling you the system is actively saying it doesn't need it, that's sort of the baseline of where people are at.
Yeah.
So I don't blame people who have the system themselves. I do blame them for not monitoring it or not sort of understanding what it should be generating over a period of time. But we're sort of trying to push against the tide. What's happening now, and this is why we sort of started Industrias, is we knew it was coming. Why? Because 100% of systems that have ever and will ever be built will need maintenance.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of waiting for the time for systems to age enough that they are off or there's risks, hazards, etc. And we were sort of there, and contemporaries, in other areas of the industry were there to sort of fulfill it.
You've said a couple of times a system is off. Are systems off and people don't realise they're off? Mm-hmm. Okay, so explain what that means, that the systems are off.
So it could be two.
the system is down.
Yeah. Well, it could be two things. One is that it's just losing communication. So the monitoring doesn't show anything, but it's still performing. It's still generating.
Yeah.
Or it's not generating. There might be an issue with the inverter, with one of the components, or there might be a short on the top, and the inverter switches off from a safety perspective, and it's literally off. And it could be a portion of the system or the entire system. And the only way to tell if the system's off is either the monitoring, which people often don't look at, the electricity bills, which sometimes people don't look at, or walking past the inverter and seeing that maybe there's no lights that are flashing, or if there's a red light that's flashing or something like that, which again, people often don't do.
Well, and I imagine, like, in the commercial space where there is that high turnover, solar panels may have been installed 15 years ago. It's a completely different executive, a completely different team now looking after the facility. They may
It's
not
also
even
completely
know.
different technology.
Yeah, they may not even know that they had solar panels, and so if it's not performing or if it's off, it's like maybe they're having a conversation. Maybe we should get solar panels.
Well, that's what often instigates it. When there's maybe a
You've
new,
already got them.
well, when there's maybe a new person that's come in and says,
Yeah.
"Hey, what are you doing with the solar?" That sometimes brings a level of sort of new eyes or refreshing eyes on the situation to say, "Okay, actually, wait, we're not doing this." Or if the system's off and it's been off for maybe 8 months and now comes to NGA's reporting time or sustainability reporting time, and they're like, "Okay, cool, we need to report our solar generation," and it's a fat 0, and that's when things sort of go. And this is obviously aside from any sort of major incident happening as well. So it's just crazy that this is happening out there. And for any FMs like watching this or listening to this, I guarantee you most of their systems do not have a formal maintenance regime on the solar assets in their facilities.
So what does best, in your mind, what is best practice for maintenance look like for an FM?
So best practice would be to inspect a system at least annually. And I will extend that to every single system, at least annually, inspect it. Now, the level and the specific scope items might vary depending on the size and location or whatever, but an annual inspection at least, and to have some sort of monitoring on that system, whether a company like ourselves actively monitors it for them or they monitor themselves. And what that will do is, between those two things, you can proactively and reactively identify and address specific issues when they occur. You can clean them when it requires them, all sorts of stuff, but then you're sort of covering both bases.
Yeah. And so you said monitoring them is really important. Are there systems in place that can integrate into their current BMS platforms rather than having yet another dashboard
Great question.
to have to go and look at?
Yeah, great question. So yes, these portals just have simple APIs. Absolutely, they can API into BMSs, into SCADA systems. Again, you can have other people doing it for you. There is no excuse why this cannot happen.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Now, what I will say, especially for a lot of FMs, is sometimes there's other challenges. So for example, they might have a fleet of systems based around the country. So finding a partner, a maintenance partner that can do all the systems can be a challenge.
Yes.
They don't want to deal with 25 different companies. And generally, national providers are more established in other sectors, again, like HVAC or cleaners or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, there are a few national players, we're one of them, but that can be a challenge for FMs as well, is to find a centralized partner. I also find, often with FMs, an FM based here doesn't necessarily talk to an FM based there.
No.
And so the decentralization between those two can also sometimes be a challenge.
Yep.
So that, to me, that's more a challenge on their side, but that can be a challenge in and of itself. But certainly on a national or international basis, that can be a huge challenge because they don't want to deal with 25 different companies.
No.
And probably different systems as well.
Yeah.
Right? Different branded panels.
Correct. Yeah,
different
exactly.
Battery systems.
Exactly.
Inverters.
So it's
What about, so we're talking about maintenance in terms of, there's some older systems out there now, probably starting to hit them the 8-year mark, maybe, commercially. And then the new panels that are coming in and the new systems that are coming in, how hard is that to integrate? Is it a simple plug and play?
well, that's actually a great question, probably for reasons you didn't realize. So,
Or did I?
yeah, actually, or did you? Sorry, good call, good shout.
I definitely did.
Good shout, yeah. So, well, because from a technological advancement perspective, solar is just going crazy.
Yeah.
So, for a system, for the same size system 10 years ago, it now requires less than half the amount of panels, and certainly and often maybe one inverter instead of 5.
And less cost.
Well, and less cost. Yes, correct, and less
wow.
cost.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
The amount of so cost has dramatically reduced, and the amount of componentry has dramatically reduced. But what that means, though, is that if something happens to an existing component, those replacement components don't exist.
Yeah, wow, already.
So that's already. This happens after 3 years, not let alone 8 years. So panels are advancing so much that it is often very difficult to find panels that are more than 3 years old.
Really?
So if a panel breaks, there is a couple of options. One is you remove it, and that's it. Or based on the design, you have to redesign it. You might have to remove the whole row. But either way, you can't replace it. And so for us, we with our clients, we say, well, when you are installing a new system, make sure you've got spare panels, make sure it's designed in such a way that you can access it. So not to go on a tangent, but other elements to this would be around, like, we see systems which are installed right next to the edge of the roof or right next to fiberglass sheeting. So we say to people, well, if something happens to that panel or a cable underneath it, whatever, we can't access that.
Yeah.
Because often it gets designed, in 2D, just
Maximize,
maximizing
correct.
the roof space.
Yeah.
Because you want as much solar as you can get.
So now just to replace a panel, we now need to hire a scissor lift. We have to remove all these panels to get to something at the end. Presents all sorts of cost and safety sort of impacts. And so the design is a big impact. But when you talk about like older systems, so that panels is a big issue, but also inverters. So inverters are going out of warranty. There's many inverters, again, which can't be replaced. So you need to redesign a whole bunch of stuff just to purely replace it. And so these things can be mitigated. They can't be avoided, but they can be mitigated on the install. But are installers recommending this? No, because it's so commoditized and it's so competitive. The last thing they're going to do is add cost for maintenance or add cost for spare product.
Yeah, well, people are doing this in their mind. They're thinking, I'm going to save so much money.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm going to have to add this cost.
Yes.
So is it really worth it at the end of the day?
I know for me, I have thought, how much solar can I get?
What's the maximum
For
amount?
the least cost possible.
Yeah.
That's not going to catch on fire.
Yeah.
Well, often that's inversely related in many cases, right?
And that conviction session.
That goes, yeah. Well, that goes with anything. We see this home battery rebate going out, and again, I know this is more resi and small business, but these rebates can have other consequences, which is just bringing enormous amounts of competitors into the space, and quality often suffers because you're right, it's so competitive that it's just lowest price wins, and quality definitely suffers, and we see that on a daily basis,
And
not
a lot
just
of
documentation.
those installers and suppliers are here for a short time, not to be here in 50 years.
Correct.
So at your 8-10 year warranty mark, there's
They're
a
gone.
good chance that they're gone. Yeah.
Correct. And so we try to tell our clients people should be doing like things like compliance audits straight after installation. Which is so important. The amount of stuff that we find is just crazy in terms of non-compliant stuff straight after install, and the amount of people that do it is almost nothing compared to the industry in general.
And that's a third party compliance.
Yeah, third-party compliance. Some states require sort of basic compliance, but we're talking like, especially on the C&I space, you need to be doing compliance audits after install. Even doing inspections as the DLP finishes, so the defect liability period.
Yeah.
Like, why are people not doing inspections before that finishes? So that you can just get everything fixed for nothing. And then obviously doing sort of annual inspections as we've talked about from there. Yeah. So it's really it's an amazing space to be a part of because there is so much white space. But the challenge then for us and the rest of the industry is trying to tell industry and the companies out there that it's needed when sometimes you're dealing with headwinds based on the installers or other industry that are just totally focused on construction.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. Like, are there installers that, like, I assume for myself, knowing this, I'd want to find someone that, okay, they're going to give me a really good price, but they're also doing the right thing. So they're partnered with the likes of companies like Industrias to say, okay, we recommend you getting maintenance and checks and inspections done, and here's our industry partner.
Yes. So we do that for a lot of EPCs, and that's starting to change.
Yep.
But it's still in that sort of early adopter phase.
Right.
And so just like most industries, the people who think about this earliest will eventually win because they'll be dealing with far less issues down the line. They'll install their systems far better, and they'll be able to focus far more attention on the construction side as their existing systems age. So it makes total rational sense, but people sometimes are quite nervous because it's quite a new sort of business model, sort of white labeling maintenance in the solar industry, which is the ultimate irony because it's not new in many other respects, in many other industries, but in solar, white labeling your maintenance and your approach with someone else is quite new. So there's an element of trust. There's also, again, going back to they don't want to distract themselves and they're just thinking in the now and not thinking for the future.
Yeah.
So all those reasons is exactly what's happening. But yes, we're doing more and more white labeled maintenance approaches for EPCs, which again will change because a lot of larger organizations are now requiring it because from a governance perspective, or they might have existing systems, as we discussed before, that there has been incidents and they realize that maintenance was required. So it's just a matter of time.
And I imagine like the likes, you mentioned IKEA before and their fire, like the likes of IKEA's head office going, that we've had one, and to now mitigate risk, we're going to introduce programs.
You just don't want it to go the other way. So we've found that when that happens, now they go, okay, now that's happened, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, which is so over the top that it actually makes it maintenance untenable.
Yes.
So you just don't want to go the other way. You're just trying to have a pragmatic approach to just safely and appropriately maintaining an asset. You just
Inspect, maintain.
correct. You just don't want it to go the other way, and that's where we're at. I mean, even insurers, the insurers themselves, again, commercial resi, as far as I'm aware, don't mandate annual inspections. But you're an insurer. Surely it's in your interest to mandate inspections on an asset that's electricity producing, or at least adjust premiums based on whether your client does it or not. But that doesn't exist either. So, yeah, we're trying to get the communication out there. It just takes a lot of time.
What do you see is like the common, like across all the installs around the country, what are you seeing is like a common thing that's a problem? And like time and time again, you're like, oh, here it is again.
Yeah, so at the most innocuous level, documentation, we talked about that. That doesn't really have performance or safety impacts, but documentation is by far the issue there. And the problem, and the second problem is having no visibility of what the system's doing. That is extremely common. And again, we talked about that might be, there's no communications, the system's off. They have no idea whether their system has been performing or not. So obviously when we talk about this, I'm not going to say the majority of systems have fire risks. In fact, for the systems that we have audited, we will classify 30% of the systems to be substandard and 1 to 3% to be unsafe.
Okay.
But 1 to 3%, well, that might sound good. 1 to 3% of thousands of assets is a lot of systems.
Still 1 to 3% too many.
Yeah.
Yes,
and we talk
absolutely.
about unsafe. We're not just like, this label is in the wrong place.
Yes.
So that's still quite alarming. But from just an everyday common perspective is, we've got the system, I don't know if it's on or off, I don't know what it's doing.
Well, and for residential, I imagine it's easier to monitor. For commercial, I would imagine there's just so many different, especially in large organisations, monitoring through the bill wouldn't be just a simple step because the facility manager isn't getting the electricity bill, the finance team is. The finance team are paying it. It's like direct debit, let's just
That's it, right?
think-
Ironically enough, probably, I mean, we don't do resi, but I would imagine from what I strongly can see and talking to people about, sort of mums and dads, they would monitor their systems more fastidiously than businesses do because it sort of affects them personally.
I know my dad does.
Yeah, I mean, it impacts them personally. And when it comes to commercial, often it's like, that's someone else's problem. But I would argue that it is no harder to monitor a system commercially than residentially. Yes, it is harder to review the bill because often the sustainability manager or operations or whatever, that he doesn't know what the bill is.
But it's easier to have systems in place because most households don't have a BMS, but most buildings will have a BMS.
And correct, but also the monitoring platforms are free, and it should be installed with the system. That's again, like it's on the installer to make sure that that's been handed over properly, and it's onto the company to make sure that gets passed over. So with all those parties at play, the fact that it doesn't exist is just crazy. But you're right, it is, the monitoring platforms are free. So there's no excuse.
And are they good?
They well, so again, good question, because they tell you whether the system's on or off
Working,
and generating. So that's its minimum.
Do they give you enough information that an FM needs to know?
Well, it depends what they want to know. So like, if they want to know if the system is working or not, yes. Does it say to them, is it performing optimally?
Suboptimally, yeah.
Not really. Does it identify a fault? Yes. But does it explain what that fault is in layman's terms? No. So there are other tools and companies that people can leverage. Again, we are one example where we can do that for them. We can filter out false positives. We can explain to them what the issues are. We can say, hey, this is an issue that you need to send someone out to or not send someone out to. But at the very minimum, these portals will tell you whether the system's on or off and whether something is being generated.
So if you're doing the bare minimum, you should be looking at the monitoring system that comes with it. But there's best practice as well.
Yeah.
Where you you don't want to just know if it's on or off or if it's
Yeah.
You want to know the greater detail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It sounds like it comes back down to someone taking ownership.
Well, that's the key,
know.
right? And I mentioned before around someone just saying that's someone else's responsibility.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the final sort of owner or person that identifies it will be someone in the finance department that says, hey, your electricity bill has doubled.
Yeah.
What's going on? And it goes down to operations, etc. The other challenge, of course, is that operations might have specific budgets, or FMs have got budgets to work to, and they haven't factored in maintenance. They haven't factored in replacing of parts. And so it's an easy expense just to sort of push aside when there's far more visceral and visible issues that the tenant is screaming harder about at the time. Again, like cleaning or, the tap's not working or something like that, until it's absolutely, required, and then the tenant wants it yesterday.
Yes.
So that's the other challenge. If I'm going to back the FM, is to say, well, what's the priority here? It's hard for FMs, from what I see, to be proactive when there's so many reactive things to address.
Yes.
And you're trying to balance between the priorities that you think or know are appropriate versus the priorities that the tenant thinks are appropriate. So I would imagine that would also be another reason as to why solar often just doesn't come up.
Yeah. And like we see it all the time across our business, but I know that many other businesses see it, and most FMs struggle with that very thing, that it's easy to be reactive, and the reactive triggers proactivity when it reaches a certain level.
Yeah.
And
They're juggling so many balls.
yeah.
Totally, especially for ops guys who might be busy in itself, and they don't want to have an extra asset to deal with, or they don't want issues that they didn't have to deal with that they now have to because someone's actually monitoring or inspecting an asset that wasn't before. Yeah. So all these things are really sort of pushing against the tide, but time will prevail. I say maintenance is like the only inevitability aside from death and taxes.
Yes.
Death, taxes, and solar maintenance, which is a bit of a weird, but it is that inevitable.
Yeah.
That it's just a matter of waiting.
Yeah.
We're trying to push the message through mediums like this and other ways, but it's just a matter of waiting.
Let's say you've got a new FM who's listening. What's some really basic questions they could be asking internally to start, like, raising the flag, I guess, because maybe they're listening to this and they go, well, I know we've got solar, but I have not heard about it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
What should they be doing internally?
So first of all, obviously, do they have solar? But they should know that already.
Yeah.
They should, and if they don't,
Find out.
they find out.
Ask a question. Go up
Yes,
on the roof.
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah,
Do
correct.
something.
Go on Google Maps or whatever, or near maps. Do they have documentation?
Yep.
Do they monitor their system? And do they have a maintenance strategy?
Yep.
That's it. And I would start with the companies that require sustainability and environmental reporting, because the biggest impact to their reduction goals or neighbours ratings is solar.
Yeah.
The biggest impact, especially if they've got large tenancies, the biggest impact to them reducing their footprint is solar. Yep. So if they've got solar, it's about, do you have solar? Do you have documentation? Do you monitor it? And do you have a maintenance strategy? That's it.
And how do they, I'm assuming you guys would help if they were to come to Industrias, let's say, or another provider. Oftentimes FMs are having to build business cases and roll out, this is what the ROI will be. This is how much this is going to impact our cash flow, our energy. Like, how do they build that business case?
Okay, so people ask me that all the time.
What's some simple things that they don't even need to bring someone in to do? They can just say, hey, have we thought about this A, B, C, D?
Okay, so my first question is, do you ask your mechanic what the business case is to service your car every year? Like, how many more kilometres is your car going to get if you service your car every year? Like, a genuine question. Do you have any
How
idea?
much longer? No, I don't.
No one does, right? But they do it because they want to identify if their brakes are bad or if something doesn't work or what have you.
Yeah, but then the mechanics also tell me that there's...
Yeah, my shocks went the other day.
Well, that's a separate issue. But what is the other major difference? It's legislated. So you require for your pink slip, rightfully so, to make sure that you are in a roadworthy car. Or you guys are from Melbourne. So in Sydney, you've got a pink slip, which
Yep.
means that every year you've got to get this slip in order to renew your
really?
registration.
Really?
Yep. So
Victoria's the place to be.
yeah. So you got to get a pink slip. It's the few key items that the mechanic checks to make sure that your car's roadworthy in order for you to renew your registration. And I actually think it's a great thing.
Is that part of is the idea that forms part of your general annual service that you would do for your car anyway?
It
Like, do
does.
they tack
It
that
does
on?
inevitably, but no. It is a separate service which is much quicker to identify key items that make sure that your car's roadworthy, so you can renew your
digress.
registration.
Yes.
Yeah, but, well, no. So yeah, that's that. So how we got this?
We'll talk about this after the episode.
Yeah. True. But that's the thing in regards to when someone say, "What's the ROI to maintenance?" I would say it will reduce, obviously, safety incidents. It will 100% improve the productivity and the performance of your system, and overall reduce costs in the long term. I cannot say to you, I know the question is totally valid, but I cannot say to people, unless the system's very dirty, then you can say, okay, it's dirty, you clean it, it increases the system performance by X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And even then, it's probably not material. Or let's say if an inverter's off, and you can say, yes, okay, that's clearly, you replace the inverter, there's a clear ROI to this.
Yes.
But what I can say is all the things we've talked about. There's $1.4 billion worth of underperformance that's being lost in systems every year. And I can show them all the incidents that have occurred to systems that have not been maintained. So from a neighbour's perspective, from a risk mitigation perspective, and just from a performance side of things, it makes sense to do it. In fact, I would say you implemented solar on an ROI. That's what you did.
Yes.
Not over a 1 year period, over a 10 to 20 year period. So what maintenance is doing is ensuring that ROI gives you the best chance of that ROI continuing.
Yes.
And if people
Maximises
if
it.
people still aren't convinced, which generally is not, because those are arguments with
Yeah.
every single.
You've convinced me already.
Well,
yeah.
every single asset that they have, they do. Like I could say, well, why do you service your air conditioner?
Yeah.
Like how many more hours on an air conditioner are you going to get by servicing it? Like maybe if you refill the gas thing, sure, but like it's the same argument.
Yes.
And if people are still not convinced, I say, okay, cool. Come back to me in a couple of years when your system starts
Why do you
going
water
wrong.
your plants?
Yes, correct.
Right?
Solar maintenance is the easiest sell when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Just like anything.
Yeah.
And so generally our biggest clients have either been ones which require, for example, like reporting or governance. They require a national partner, or something majorly has gone wrong.
And I assume that it's only a matter of time before the regulations get stricter, and there are some mandates around this. And it's always better to be ahead of the game in that than having to chase your tail and you've got a deadline now. And I've got to find someone who can do a national maintenance program on all and report to us for everything.
Yeah.
It's probably easier. Let's get in before regulations start
Exactly.
becoming harder.
The issue is that other things take priority when it comes to government policy. So we've got this home battery rebate scheme and everyone's excited about it. And so, or there's another rebate or there's whatever, carbon reduction targets, all that sort of stuff. Maintenance doesn't play in those discussions until things start to go wrong. And the explosion of construction, which has really occurred since 2015, but call it maybe since 2017, 18, it's coming. Just, it's not very sexy from a government perspective to spruik maintenance. It's far sexier to spruik rebates and free batteries and all that sort of stuff than this.
Yeah.
So
I'm here for the maintenance rebate. That sounds great.
Well, yeah, well that's I've really been a proponent of, if you're going to push the rebate scheme, which is relevant not just resi but for commercial, if you're going to push rebates to improve construction, those rebates should be passed through to ensuring that system does what it needs to do over time. And that's a hard sell for that exact reason, because government legislation wants, what's the ROI on this? Or what can I explain to my constituents what they'll be saving by doing this? You're like, well, you can't. But you can say to them, you're going to reduce the impact. Is it going to reduce the electricity bills? Well, yes. And they say, well, by how much? I don't know.
How long's a piece of string?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the ironic thing, is that with all that in mind, legislation does exist to maintain other areas of the industry that we've talked about, which are far more visceral. And so we're hoping that will change over time.
If you had one piece of advice in this area to give to an FM who's listening today, what would it be?
Actually, two pieces of advice. Well, one.
Greedy?
Yeah. Well, one would be obviously to ask your tenants questions. I think from an FM perspective, it can actually make you look really great to your tenant that you're doing something proactive, especially as it relates to an asset that saves them money. As opposed to cleaning their floors or whatever. I think it can make you feel really good. And I think in a day where FM can be quite a commoditous industry and people are moving from FM to FM, if you've seen it as an FM that is proactive, and I've spoken to many FMs about this, you're far stickier to the customer. So I think that is something that's extremely relevant. So to ask those
I
questions.
need to say, not as opposed to cleaning the floors.
No, definitely not as
conjunction
opposed.
with.
Totally. Well, no.
Teasing.
Yeah. Well, you're never
Don't
going to...
negate one for the other.
But you're never going to...
both.
But that's the thing. You're never going to get away from that. If someone sees a dirty floor, no one's going to be like, oh, that's fine. My solar's, whatever. No one's going to say that is what I'm saying. So, definitely do both for sure. So,
I was just teasing.
but that would be my number one element. And the other one would be, if this is indeed a requirement to one of your facilities, look internally for other businesses that other FMs might use in other areas. And rather than ignore it, leverage your own internal FM network to see if they use existing providers that has supported them. Because again, we do lots of work for lots of FMs, and as soon as we go to another building manager, it's as if we don't even exist. And if that building manager spoke to internally, they would have reached us or another company far quicker and with far less stress. So that would be my sort of two pieces of advice.
I love it.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Coming
Thank you
on
so
the
much,
Let's Talk
guys.
Facilities
Very,
podcast.
very fascinating.
Yeah, appreciate it. I hope I've made solar maintenance that much more sexy.
Yes,
Well,
you have. Well, I don't have solar, but when I do, I'm going to maintain it.
I can't wait for the team's thumbnail on
Yeah?
this. They're probably going to edit off our clothes. This is the sexiest episode we've ever had.
For sure. No, thanks for having me, guys. I really,
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.